I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everyone, what is up? This is the Last Dance docu-series after show. We're here to talk about episodes 5 and 6, which were absolutely incredible. Sorry, just throwing out there. I'm your host, Haley Graves. Welcome back for everyone joining us. As you can see, we have our amazing panel here joining me. So, Jet, go ahead and say what's up to the people.
How's it going, everybody? I obviously am still loving the documentary. I think that we've learned a lot about Michael Jordan, the gambler, in the past couple episodes, which is really, really fascinating stuff, especially considering he controls all the messaging going on in the documentary. So the fact that he allowed them to even talk about that, I think, is a pretty cool thing.
That is a unique perspective. And for those of you joining us for the first time, Jet is our illustrious radio sports analyst or host. He does both, and he's more of a Celtics fan, even though he's wearing that Bulls jersey tonight. So, guys, he is our expert, and I really like that you're bringing in that perspective. And we have Miss Jess joining us.
I had to rep my Lakers today. It was either Lakers or it was Dream Team action, but the fact that MJ isn't on the shirt, I was like, we'll just show it for a nice little prop today.
Wait, but that shirt's pretty epic, so you're going to need to bring that back. All right,
I'll
guys.
Definitely talk about it a little bit more later on.
All right, guys, and go ahead. We missed you last week, but say what's up, Jill.
Hey, it's Jill Munroe. So excited to talk about this. We have a lot to discuss about Jordan's shady character friends. Anybody named Slim? Come on.
No, but facts. The name Slim, 100% agree with you there. And guys, in case you're wondering, we do have an awesome guest joining us with us this evening. Whoa, words are hard. Frank Michael Smith, tell everyone what's up.
How's it going, everybody? Happy to be here. I need to learn more about Slim too. I even tried looking him up. I still can't find anything. So, hey, let's talk about it.
I'm shocked. I feel like you always know all these little side stories that people don't know about.
I was so excited to learn about him.
I know. I wonder who was more Google searched last night, him or the illustrious white-haired guy.
Oh my God, yeah.
Which I will say that in looking through everything from last night, I did see his name, but it's escaping me right now. But sadly,
It's
he
like
passed away in
Michael
January.
Wozniak, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, it was something like tongue twisty. So I was like, I'm not even going to attempt to remember what I read.
White-haired guy? Which guy are you talking about?
The guy who had the mullet. Yeah, the shrugging mullet guy.
Yeah.
He was arena security.
The GOAT security guard.
Yep. All right, guys. So before we dive into this amazing 2 episodes where we've learned a lot more about who Jordan really was, I feel like the first 4 episodes was really setting the tone and kind of setting the scene. And then now we're really diving into the nitty gritty and figuring out a lot more characteristics about Jordan himself. Jess, go ahead and tell me your thoughts on these 2 episodes.
Honestly, I loved both episodes. I think the first episode just truly resonated with me because Kobe was in it and they started off with him. They started off with the All-Star game where you see that iconic moment between MJ and Kobe just standing there that are like shoulder to shoulder. They're leaning over and you hear about how MJ was a mentor to Kobe. It was such a cool moment to be able to hear those words coming from Kobe. It's been a minute, obviously, since we have been able to hear all of that. So it was just everything I needed it to be.
No doubt. Frank, tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, so going off the Kobe thing, that's all I was hearing before this episode started was how this was going to be about Kobe, to get the tissues ready, everything of that sort. So I saw it come to that in the beginning, and I was a little confused, like how much can you really do on Kobe? He wasn't really the man yet that we learned, we didn't learn, but 19 years old at the time. And he came and he went. I was really shocked. I thought the buildup was like, this is the Kobe episode, and it was 5 minutes. So that was my initial reaction. But I thought the first episode was really strong, and the second one was kind of just like a career timeline. But yeah, let's dive into the details.
Yeah, no doubt. And Jill, give me your thoughts.
Obviously, like everyone, I loved hearing about Kobe. I loved hearing them in the locker room referring to him as the little Laker boy and talking about how he needs to rebound and what they would have said.
The
Just
only way I'm ever going to
all
refer to
these
him again.
Joe, get out of here.
all these Eastern Conference All-Stars, and all of their attention was on Kobe. So that was great to see. I loved getting into Jordan's gambling backstory. Was it an issue? The things that we talk about. Can you imagine currently if an athlete went to Atlantic City before a playoff game and with social media, how much scrutiny that would be under? But you look at how much scrutiny he was under. It was just a great story. I liked hearing more about the Dream Team and their camaraderie, as well as why Jordan may have really retired in 93. You know, people are still going to be on the fence, but I thought there was a lot of great information.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
go for it. No, go for it, Frank.
I think we've seen that. You remember when the New York Giants were on the boat with I forget the artist.
Oh,
That was kind of that was the equivalent, and they got torn apart for it. Like I don't think they ever recovered. So I completely agree with you. That would not fly today. It doesn't.
Yeah, and I think, and we really talked about that even last week with Rodman, and you know what I mean? Like we've talked about it with him, and then just it's such a different time frame between those days and now simply because of social media.
I will say that seeing how the media was starting to be portrayed in these last two episodes was kind of like, okay, well, this is making it sort of catch up to where we're at now in 2020, just slowly getting there. But you could see how irritated MJ was getting and how Magic was saying, you guys are going to make him quit if you don't back off. You know, it was kind of cool to see them all catching up with where we are at now.
Yeah, and it's interesting how kind of that tone has changed.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about those first two episodes, how amazing it was that the journalists were so heavily included. You know, most of the people that were interviewed were journalists from that time. And we were all talking about how it's really cool to see the impact, but now we're seeing almost a negative impact on them. But before we really get there, I want to start talking about just Kobe. We have to touch on it. I will say for me, it was also emotional watching it. It's kind of one of those things that so much has happened in 2020. It's really hard to believe. You know, if you put us back in January when the tragedy with Kobe happened, we all said that was going to be the biggest sports story to happen for years, if not this decade. And then now the times that we're in, I mean, we're sitting here on a Zoom call doing this, you know? And so it's just crazy to think what's happened in 2020. But even for me, I haven't really been able to forget Kobe and what took place in January. That's something that hasn't really left my mind. And so it was almost surreal seeing him on the screen talking to us. You know, it was kind of that, it was coming out almost eerie at the same time because obviously when they were filming all of this, no one knew that was going to happen. And so I don't know, that was just my perspective on it. But Jet, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it was really, like you said, kind of eerie to see Kobe. I mean, you see all these greats, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and all of his competitors and contemporaries talking about him, and they're all still alive and kicking and reacting to every episode on Twitter or on ESPN getting interviewed, and Kobe's not here to do that. So it's very sad in that way. In the other way, you see, like Jordan, how many people Kobe inspired. And we'll talk about it when I get into the social media aspect of it. Because while Kobe was just in the episode for about 5 minutes, I mean, the flurry of tweets from former players saying Kobe was my Jordan, you know, Kobe inspired me to play basketball. So you see the similarities. I've always said Kobe was like 95, 96% of Michael Jordan. LeBron and Michael Jordan's game, not very much alike at all. Kobe and Michael Jordan's game were virtually identical. And you could tell how much Kobe learned from Michael Jordan, and how Michael Jordan really for the first time in his life sort of relished being a mentor to somebody he saw that could emulate his game and take basketball to the next generation. Kind of like how Larry and Magic passed the torch to Jordan. I think Jordan finally said, you know, things are winding down here. I see some of myself in this kid, in little Laker boy. And I'm going to teach him what I know, even though he's not on my team, but he doesn't represent a threat to me. So I have no problem teaching him what I know. And so you see how that relationship affected Kobe Bryant, how he credited Michael Jordan for all 5 of his championships.
Yeah.
which I think was a very humble thing to do from a guy that I think we think of Jordan and Kobe and guys like that as not necessarily the most humble guys, which is fine. That's part of what their greatness is. But for Kobe to give credit to another person that he never even played with for his championships, that's what I thought was the most powerful quote from the entire Kobe segment.
Yeah, that's how I took it as well, especially, how you mentioned that he was like, I don't get 5 championships here without him. And he quite literally said, like, what you get from me is him. And I just thought that was so powerful. And I also had this passing thought when I was watching it that, Kobe, if he was still here today, I feel like watching that and watching it unfold, he would have just been chuckling, to know that he was the point of conversation of that Eastern All-Star locker room and the things that they were saying about him when he was a rookie. And I mean, he mentioned that things were hard on him because the age of the league was so much older than him at the time. But I just think he would have been chuckling to know that in reality, they were talking about him, but to me, it came across as they were threatened by him and who he was and how he played and just the ferocity in which he played the game of basketball. And I don't know, it like that left me feeling warm and fuzzy a little bit, knowing that I think Kobe would have kind of appreciated that part of the documentary also. Jill, you're nodding over there. What are your thoughts of this Kobe part?
I just felt that, we got to see how Kobe processed their relationship, especially after, like you mentioned, after they retired, because so many people say, who's the GOAT, Jordan,
Yeah.
Kobe, or LeBron. I think LeBron's game actually lends himself, and even his approach, more towards Magic Johnson. I've always sort of stood by that. And so just seeing that sort of Kobe's last words on Twitter were for LeBron passing him. And then in this, giving credit to Jordan for his 5 championships and admitting things that people have always said about him, but him embracing it and saying, no, you don't understand how much Michael was there for me, I thought was very powerful, because it can kind of end at least some of the debates that happened because he answered those questions.
And then Frank, so we've all discussed it. Who is your GOAT?
Well, I have Michael for sure. Yeah, I think it's going to take a lot for LeBron to get there. I certainly think he can do it, but I've never had a question. It's Michael. I think it's really interesting. I was like 5 years old when Michael was just about done playing, and he was still the man. That was who I was introduced to basketball with, and he wasn't even playing anymore. I don't think you have to say much more than that. But just going back to the Kobe thing for a second, how those guys were all laughing and joking in the locker room, even on the court at times. And then after the game, I thought that was a really funny exchange with, I think it was Gary Payton talking about, oh, we'll see you in the finals. We'll be there. These guys all seem like they're buddies. And this is something you see in the NBA today. These guys, they're not like the 90s. These guys, we weren't friends with each other back then. Everyone was a rival. It certainly doesn't seem like that. It seems like these guys were just as friendly and even at times brotherly. I think that's the word Kobe used. So I think everyone that, reminisces on the 90s needs to pump the brakes a little bit. It's okay to be friends with your colleagues.
Yeah.
You see, I think that there was certainly a degree of that, but I think at the same time you saw they could put that aside during the game, and Michael Jordan would say, "Okay, we might be somewhat friendly. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna kill you. I'm literally gonna try to embarrass you." And my favorite part of these whole 2 episodes, maybe the whole series right now, was seeing what Michael Jordan did to Clyde Drexler, then Tony Kukoc, then Dan Marley in succession, just saying, I do not give a damn about you, or that Tony Kukoc, you're joining my team. I'm going to pants you on an international level right now. And there was just no mercy. So yeah, I think that these guys were friendly, but I still think players today are friendlier. We talked about the other episode. I know you weren't here, Frank, but they just all grew up playing AAU together now. And that wasn't necessarily the case there, but I think Jordan certainly had guys he was closer to than others. Clearly, he wasn't friendly with Isiah Thomas, who he still, every time they mention his name, his face turns sour.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. I think Jordan definitely has a switch that he can flip, and it never failed him once. But yeah, these players nowadays certainly friendlier. But I just think that was a good lesson for everyone to go back and see that, maybe everyone didn't hate each other all the time.
Poor Tony Kukoc.
No, I know.
Yeah,
And
poor
see,
guy.
Realize all these American guys are
Literally-
going to be so close to him or whatever.
that's like the perfect segue into just us talking about how they really were friends and being able to see that despite how competitive and physical this league was back in the day, like they still had such respect for each other that made them super friendly. And we got to see that with the dream team. Like for me, this was just really cool to see how all of this came about. But I think the biggest takeaway for myself, and then obviously Twitter blew up about it, but that, let's be honest,
We're getting some Texas
Uh-oh.
internet going right
wasn't
now.
on
Yeah.
that team.
One more time, Haley.
Okay, sorry. I'm just talking about the dream team. We're going to talk about them and the fact that MJ was the reason that Isiah Thomas was not on
my gosh.
that.
Do you think, I think what we kind of discovered too is we know MJ was a part of it, but it seemed like the majority of the dream team did not really rock with Isiah Thomas. It's
Exactly.
funny, it kind of reminds me of what you kind of hear about Chris Paul too, and the fact that they're both Tauruses. Sorry, I had to drop a little. Just kind of brought it all together for me.
I'm a Taurus. What are you saying? Are you saying I'm like Chris Paul?
Too. My birthday was Friday. So
Happy birthday.
but I felt that it was Jordan obviously had the final say because we saw the torches pass and that, but also that like 9 out of the 12 players didn't rock with Isiah. I think that, and he beat all of the ones that didn't rock with him. So I think that there was a lot to it. To just put it on Jordan, even though a lot is on him, I think is a little unfair. I think we learned everybody had a beef with him.
Exactly. I feel like that's such you notice this throughout these past 2 episodes, especially where the media and the fans always want so many people to be against each other. They wanted Kobe and MJ to always be against each other. Who's better? Who's the GOAT? LeBron and everyone else. They want everybody to be against each other. And it's like, it's not always about that. Sometimes there's a group of guys who just don't get along with Isiah Thomas. It's not just MJ. He literally listed all of the guys. It was Magic, it was Larry, it was MJ, it was Scottie Pippen. It's like, clearly the problem isn't MJ, it's Isiah Thomas.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's like
Jet.
when you're
Not Magic. They were BFFs. Had they fallen out?
they were they weren't friends then they got back together,
Yeah.
then they had a bad falling out, and then they're kind of back and forth. I mean, Isiah Thomas just seems like kind of a dick, if we're being I mean, in Isiah Thomas' defense, so does Michael Jordan, but
Right.
6 beats 2 in terms of championships. So we say we'll live with Michael Jordan being a dick. I think that the amazing part of the Dream Team stuff was finally seeing some footage from that practice that, if you're a basketball junkie and you're a fan, you've heard about these 2 practices from the 1992 Barcelona Olympics.
Yep.
One was the one that they showed where it was Jordan and Magic Johnson jawing and going back and forth, and then Jordan just took over, and the rest of the players were like, okay, he's top dog, he's past us, it's not even a question anymore. The other one that they didn't show was Jordan scrimmaging against the college guys. Chris Webber was on that team, a couple other great college guys, and that was supposed to be legendary too, because I think Jordan just emasculated those dudes and was not having it. Any of those college guys trying to come at him. So awesome that we got some of that footage. I would watch the entire scrimmage. I literally would watch the entire scrimmage, potato quality and all. So I was really excited to see it. It was awesome to hear the stories from that, and it's just such a legendary team. I love that everybody was like, oh, and this upstart Croatia team could be a threat to the United States. They beat them by 40 both times.
Yeah.
Crushed them.
I
They
know.
crushed everybody they played.
And literally, speaking of people that they were determined to crush, we saw ultimate, I feel like, Michael Jordan pettiness with Tony. Poor Tony. Like, literally felt so bad for the guy. But I also loved the fact that they made the effort to get him to be a part of the documentary.
Yeah. I'm glad that they pointed out that it wasn't so much to be against him. They didn't want to embarrass him, but they didn't get along with Jerry Krause and they didn't like what he did to Scottie Pippen once again. So they were like, okay, we're going to prove you wrong if we have to do it again.
No, it for sure was them. And I feel like it was just further influencing the storyline of just the animosity that like the players just felt towards Jerry. I mean, he continues to have that villain role that has been established throughout all these episodes.
My
I love
favorite
seeing-
line. Go ahead.
ahead.
I think you're going to say the same.
Okay, I was gonna say I love seeing Tony Kukoc being interviewed years later, and he's still like, "It was first time I met them. I don't know what I did." I thought that was hysterical.
And especially just the way the producers framed it, because the producers were even like, "Oh, he didn't come because there was a war going on in his country."
Right.
And it was just, I just felt bad for the guy, but I do like that they kind of wrapped it back around and, brought up the fact that he really established himself in the second game. But I mean, I personally was cracking up at the pettiness of Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan because, these two episodes, we also really got to see Michael's personal vendettas that he would create in himself against other people to make himself play better.
His competitive nature would just always come out, even when they brought it up when we touch on gambling a little bit later on. He says, "No, I don't have a gambling problem. I have a competitive problem." But at least he knows it. But you have to have that competitive problem in order to be what he's become and what he has always been. He's the greatest. And look at, like, that is the type of mindset that you have to have. So I think it's
no doubt.
Yeah, he's a psycho.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
I will say though, that one of my favorite parts of this was his creativity and hiding the Reebok logo.
Oh my gosh, it was so clever.
Yes, and the fact that
super petty and super clever.
Because I really thought that he was going to do something bad. They were just alluding to the fact, because he was like, "Oh, wait till they see what I have up my sleeve," and I was like, "Oh, what is this man about to do?" And then they like switched to the shot of the flag being perfectly over, and he just has that like grin, like, "Y'all know what I'm up to." And I was just like, that is peak amazement. Like, I was amazed by that.
I thought he was going to put like some tape over it, like it was going to be so bad.
Same.
But seeing those like the classic 90s aesthetic I think it's been such a cool part about this entire series. And I have to say, Croatia really messed up. Did anyone else notice how poor their uniforms were? They look like a JV soccer team. Like, it was so pathetic, whoever outfitted them.
Hey, they were in a war.
That's true. They have a pretty good excuse.
Well, I know, but I mean,
the Croatian War. That was a real gut buster.
No. Wow, y'all are awful. Okay. That we'll just briefly touch on the fact that the reason why he was, covering the Reebok symbol was because of his illustrious deal with Nike. Can we just talk for a minute, guys? I am Adidas till I die. Like,
really?
I am so Team Adidas that I feel like I'm cheating on them. I have one.
Is that an Aggie thing?
Yes, it stems from that.
It's because I went to Oregon, so I'm just a super Nike loyalist.
See, and at A&M, all I ever had was Adidas stuff. So I am like Adidas through and through now. I literally have one pair of Jordans, and if I wear them, I feel like I'm cheating on Nike. I mean, I'm cheating on Adidas.
Oh my God.
No. Like, it runs deep. Leggings, shirts, hats. I don't wear the check. I am straight.
First of all, it is the swoosh. How dare you call it the check?
No, it's the check. I just gotta say that Jordan wanted Adidas. How much do you think Adidas reps right now are watching this and just like
they're gonna use that?
Well, Converse too.
No more than Converse, who went out of business and Nike bought them.
Facts. Okay, Frank, what were you gonna say?
Oh, the same thing Jet just said. Converse too. I think the offer they said was, we can have him, but we can't give him his own shoe because we have bigger guys. Like, how silly does that sound now?
It's almost unfathomable. But Frank, Team Nike or Team Adidas?
I'm a free agent.
Oh my gosh, he's playing the field.
I rep both. I made a huge mistake one time in my high school basketball game. We had Nike shoes and I was wearing Adidas socks, and my coach pulled me aside and he was he was like, "Hey man, you got to pick one. Like, this can't continue the rest of the season. And from that point on, I never made that mistake again. So I do just stick to one at a time, but I own both.
I hope you went and said a whole, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned."
Yeah, a couple Hail Marys.
That's
Definitely.
as bad as it gets.
I like that Converse was like, well, we will sign you, but we have Bernard King and a rapping Larry Bird in our commercials, so I don't really think we need you. Like, Larry Bird's closing out this commercial with a pretty ill rap, if you know what I'm saying, MJ.
No. Oh my gosh. I literally in my notes, y'all, I wrote in all caps, ha ha ha, Larry Bird in the Converse commercial.
Oh my God.
Because it was just literally, it was magic. If it was nowadays, he for sure would have been a meme. I'm just saying.
Oh,
You know what I would
true.
appreciate though is if we could get some more commercials like that now. Like every sports commercial you see now is like, it's so serious. Like everyone takes himself so seriously. If we could get like some goofy, corny, silly stuff, it would be so
literally
refreshing.
like the Bears, the Super Bowl shuffle, how they did that commercial, that team did the Super Bowl shuffle. The Rams have like this,
Ram it.
you gotta ram it. Like,
Have some fun.
that's what
Right?
I'm
Would
saying.
it kill Luka Doncic to do the same rap as Larry Bird? Come on.
Oh my God.
No. Oh my gosh,
get
that's the
Caruso
best.
He's got the
again.
tats.
Yeah, Caruso could do it.
That is the best idea I've ever heard. You need to like tweet that because I promise it would go viral.
Put it out there.
Yes.
My
like,
name is Luka, and I'm here to say I'm going to rap in a European way.
Oh, here we go.
Pretty good.
The accents are just coming out here.
That is genius. But guys, the other thing that I thought was crazy about this for me, because I am a slight sneakerhead, that it was really cool to kind of hear how the Jordan shoe came to be. And especially the fact that we should be crediting Mama Jordan for all of this.
Yeah.
But
Without her, it never would have happened.
But, his agent, David Falk, would definitely stop that because homie was out here just taking all of the credit. Like, I was like, wow, granted, it was all of his idea, but I was just like, wow, this is crazy to see how the Jordan shoe actually came to be.
Sounds like an agent taking all the credit.
Right. It was also so cool to hear them say that they were hoping to make $3 million after year 4, when in fact they ended up making $126 million by the end of year 1. Like,
I was cracking up when they announced that. I was like, yeah, I think they underestimated slightly the demand for these shoes.
And
they're Air Jordans.
Yeah. And but that was so brilliant. And again, like I've mentioned this, in other episodes, how like we keep seeing like God's intentions for Michael Jordan. And like, you cannot tell me that it wasn't a God thing, that Nike was working on an Air sole at the time that Jordan was coming through. And they were just like, oh, Air Jordan, because he plays in the air. Like, that's just brilliant. It just
the brilliance of Nike. Good point.
No, Adidas would have come up with something way cooler, let's be honest. But what was cool for me to just kind of witness, I will give props to the agent for the fact that he decided to take the approach of branding Michael Jordan as a golfer, a tennis player, as an individual rather than a team, because I didn't realize that wasn't even really a thought back then. So to know how far we've come, and especially even think about right now, the NCAA just allows, or has just passed to allow in 2021, student athletes are able to make money off their name and likeness. Literally we're in the 80s, and for the first
it only
time,
took them 100 years to do it.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Like in the 80s, that was the first time an agent was like, hey, let's market one player for who he is. And then now we're 40 years down the road, and it's just now happening for collegiate athletes. Blows my mind.
Yeah, I was gonna say this for the tweet section because I thought it was interesting, but it works perfectly here. So this was from ESPN Stats and Info, their Twitter account. Michael Jordan made $145 million in endorsements between May 2018 and May 2019, 130 which came from Air Jordan. Currently, he makes around $130 million per year on his shoe deal. Still, this is on an average annual basis. The next closest to him is LeBron James, who makes $32 million. Michael Jordan makes $100 million more a year than LeBron James on his shoe deal.
Wow.
Chills.
LeBron may have the lifetime billion though.
Very
may.
true.
That blows my mind.
But this is a guy who's been retired since 2003,
Yeah.
and he still makes $130 million a year on his shoe deal.
You
No
know what
wonder he
else?
has a
I'm
gambling
kind
problem.
of wondering if
And as a gambling
that was funny. I'm kind of wondering if he received any sort of backlash from that, since they were branding him as this independent tennis player, golfer, because was that was the first time that had been happening, where he was coming from a team sport. They
I
didn't
feel
really
like-
touch on that too much.
I feel like it was more like just an understood thing.
That
Well,
was
it
Go ahead,
opened
Jill.
up a whole new revenue source for players,
Yeah.
so I think they appreciated it.
yeah.
Yeah, because like I feel like that at this point they all began to acknowledge his greatness and who he was, and so it was just like, this makes sense. It makes sense that he has his own shoe. It makes sense that he's doing all of these things, you know? So it just kind of really was the ball that started it all. I rhymed.
You should do a rapping video with
No,
who is that?
just me and you, Jet, we're gonna write it the next commercial and cast everyone. But the one thing that I will say I appreciated about this episode was the other episodes have been very not jumbled, but like we're in this year, then we go to this year, then we go back to this year, then we're at another year, and it was just a lot of back and forth. That these two episodes to me were the most fluid. And so I really liked how at the end of this episode, they were setting us up for episode 6 by bringing up the 1990 North Carolina Senate race, and then also contrasting that with the beginning of the 1998 season, where we're really starting to see the impact that Michael Jordan is having, not just on the game of basketball, but on the world.
Also, did you
Go
notice
ahead.
that they changed it to President Barack Obama?
Yeah,
Anyone?
really?
they fixed it.
That's
They did.
amazing. I
I'm
will
assuming-
say,
Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say that was his quote, or his interview part was one of my favorites of these two episodes also, because he gave such good perspective. You know, it was that I'm sure it was just difficult in general to be a part of, like as far as Jordan really even being willing to go back to that point and the backlash he got, but Obama like hit it over the head. I mean, it was really, really good what he said. I'm just going to throw it out there.
You know, there's an expectation on athletes more so
Yeah.
now than ever to take a stand, when really it's okay to not take a stand. People are just thinking, you know, oh, he has all this microphone, why not use it? But
Yeah.
it's equally okay to not do it. I think, you know, we
Right.
see guys like LeBron James who are very, very vocal about it, which is great, and that's his right and he's entitled to, and I think, you know, more power to him. But you also have to respect people who don't want to be active politically. And that quote that Jordan said was said in jest, you know, Republicans buy sneakers too.
Yep.
If he wanted to put his business, even if it was totally said true, if he wanted to put his business interests ahead of his, you know, microphone or his political interests, that's his right to do. And I don't think it's fair to criticize him for it. I've never thought it was really fair to criticize him for it. Just like I wouldn't criticize LeBron for endorsing who he wants to endorse, you know, whether or
Yeah.
not I was voted for Hillary Clinton or was voting for Donald Trump. That's, you know, LeBron James is still a private citizen. Michael Jordan's a private citizen. And just because they're an athlete, that doesn't mean they have to do one thing or the other.
Right. I
Also, I
really,
didn't vote for Donald Trump, just so we're making that clear.
I really despise the fact that everybody thinks that because you are a public figure, you have to be an activist. It's like,
Yeah.
he wants to play ball. That's all he cares about. That's
Yeah.
all he wants to do. He didn't sign up to be an activist. So why does everyone feel the need to like force him into this box and make him into an activist? He said what he said because he was thinking about it from a business standpoint and a financial standpoint. And it's obviously helped him. I mean, 160 million every year. That's
Well,
incredible.
and I feel like
And he only
For
loses
me-
half to gambling, so that's pretty
Right.
good.
True.
one of my key takeaways in this though was this was only the beginning of really the media and everyone trying to find something wrong with him. You know, it's like it really blows my mind that as humans that we live in a society where if someone has so much success and is amazing at what they do, we can't just praise them and give them credit for doing those things, and in his case just flat out being a good human. You know, like we have to find bad things about people, and it honestly makes me sad because that was in 1990 when that started, and it really lasted all the way until 1998.
It's
that's-
frustrating. I've been trying to find like good dirt on LeBron for so many years now, and it's so hard to do to just tear that guy down. I can't do it. I want to so bad, but he doesn't
I'm
make
sure you
mistakes.
do, media man. But guys, tell me just before we move on to episode 6 really briefly, who remembers that 1998 game? Because I was only 4, so I don't. But it was just crazy that they talked
You guys
about
are
like
so young.
Oh wait, I was
I know.
2 at the time.
yeah, like it's just crazy that they like Jerry Seinfeld was getting kicked out of their freaking locker room. I will say I think it would be hilarious if someone like compared the two, because you know how he was like, this is the show of the 90s and they're the team of the 90s. Like if someone compared the two, I think it'd be really funny. I've never seen Seinfeld either, so I couldn't do it. But
don't know.
you know, I will say one thing that like at the end of this episode that stood out to me was they obviously ended it with Jordan, you know, lacing up his shoes, right? And it was this like just slow, nostalgic, whatever episode. But he has a wedding ring on, and we have yet to talk about anything about any women in his life, family, or anything like that. Like, did that just happen way later?
No,
I have something small to
I-
add. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go for it.
ahead.
No, go for it, Frank.
Yeah,
go-
you can totally take the wife thing, because I wasn't going to mention that, but you mentioned lacing up the shoes. How many shots do we see him lacing up his shoes? He doesn't have a guy to do this. He laces his own shoes
Oh my-
every single time. It was amazing to me. Like they felt the need to include like 7 shots of that.
And I
Listen,
want to go ahead, Jill.
I was just gonna say some of my favorite shots were the vanity license plates, but as
Every
far
time.
as
Two tray.
two tray, like just the best. And he had it on like a 4.6 Range Rover, which had just came out around that time. Like next level. His car
Yeah.
game was elite.
Yeah.
But I think with Juanita, their divorce was peaceful, but there were some issues. I think it's just an agreement that that part of his life is very much done.
Oh,
She's not a
gotcha.
public figure. She's maybe given one interview in the
Oh, wow.
time since their divorce. And I think that there could be an NDA. We
Okay.
don't know, or some things like
Probably,
that.
yeah.
But I think, you know, he's married, he has young daughters, and his children are adults, and just that part of his life is where it is.
Yeah.
I guess they touched on it briefly about his marriage, but there was a lot of controversy within all of that anyway. So
Okay, that's good to know. I'm glad you're here to kind of clarify that, because like I kept after I noticed that, I kept noticing his wedding ring, and then like even the scene I want to say in episode 6 where they're like, "Oh, do you want to talk to your wife?" And he was just like, "Yeah, I guess so." And it was just kind of like, I wonder why. Like we've obviously seen all other members of his family, but that makes sense. So that is really good info. All right, guys, now let's slide into, we're going to talk about episode 6. For me, episode 6, loved it because we really got to see a chunk of who Michael was. You know, especially just his competitiveness continued. But I think one of my biggest takeaways just in the beginning when the director of PR for the Bulls was talking, I keep this whole episode for me, I love that we keep learning about how competitive and fierce Michael Jordan was, but I also love the fact that he didn't ever treat anyone different. Like he treated people different competitively on a basketball court, but learning about how before every game he would sit down with terminally ill children, you know, to seeing the shots of him with the security of the arena playing games with them, you know, whatever that quarter game was, because I kept watching it. I was like, what are they trying to do? Like, is it just whoever throws the quarter? Okay, yeah, never heard of it. So I was just like, are they just trying to see whose quarter goes farther? Like, but for me, it was really, really cool to see that how he treated everyone just with like equal respect. It didn't matter who it was. He was constantly signing autographs with people. Like he was just a very respectful human being. Did anyone else notice that?
I noticed that as well, especially for me. One of the bigger things that I've noticed in working with professional athletes over the years is it's huge to see the way they treat their fans.
Yeah.
But what I kind of notice even more so is the way they treat the people that are working the stadium
Yeah.
or security, because eyes aren't necessarily on them at that time. Whereas eyes are almost always on them when they're talking to a fan.
Yep.
And they're kind of doing that for PR purposes. Maybe not every time, but a lot of the time it is
Yeah.
some sort of PR reasoning. And so being able to see him behind the scenes with the security guards, who they really like, it doesn't really matter what his relationship is like with them, because he could still go wherever he wants at any stadium, wherever he goes,
Yeah.
So seeing the way he was with them and seeing him playing those games and like making bets with them, and I was like, this is great. This is the MJ that I want to see, the behind the scenes MJ.
Yeah, I was reading about his relationship with some of the security guards too, because that went viral, the game of
Yeah.
quarters that they were playing. And apparently long after he retired, he was helping take care of the security guards too, specifically that guy Mike who did the shrug and was, helping him when he was sick too. So he did have like an actual friendship with those guys, which is cool. I think to contrast that, he was a respectful guy unless you were his enemy. If you were on the court against him, he was disrespecting you by going right at you. I think what was important to him was, I'm going to be respectful, but everybody needs to know their place. I am the alpha here. I am top dog. I will go in the back and out of the plane and I will gamble $1,000 hands. Then I will move to the front of the plane and I'll take $1 hands off your blackjack game. Will Purdue and BJ Armstrong. I am the alpha. I will do what I want. And everybody else has to, play by the rules of making sure that I'm Michael Jordan. I'm the best player. I'm the most famous person on planet Earth. As long as that is understood, we're fine. But if anybody challenged that notion, specifically guys in that basketball universe, Jerry Krause, Clyde Drexler, Tony Kukoc, Dan Marley, Danny Ainge, anybody, the list goes on and on and on. Little Laker boy Kobe Bryant. Then he let you know who the boss was.
Yeah, and I mean, you're doing a perfect job segueing us right into just this entire gambling story. Like I kind of can't shake what you said, Jed, at the top of the hour, that like it's just crazy to me that he did allow this to get brought back up, because he so badly wanted to just kill it back in that 92-93 season. And for him to just kind of bring it back and get people thinking and talking about it again, it's actually really interesting now that you bring that up. But all of this kind of came about because of that one night that he decided to go with family to gamble. Like even just that little aspect of it is kind of mind blowing to me, that he straight up left the city and went to a casino, regardless if he got back at midnight. Like I just feel like you don't see those types of things nowadays.
So I actually think that you do. I just
Okay.
think that it's not discussed. I think that it was more commonplace then because you
Yeah.
could get away with it. I mean, whereas you think of something like with football, they're more regimented and they have to stay in hotels the night before, even if it's a home game, and they have, curfews. Basketball is from last week when they were talking about how in the 70s they used to crack beers and smoke cigarettes at halftime.
It
It's
was
just
this week.
Okay, so it was this one. So I think it's just an evolution of the game and what you can get away with. What no one knows, no one questions. It wouldn't have even come up if it hadn't gotten out that he was away and he was out. And they still won that game.
Yeah.
Performed great. So it's kind of hard to argue with it.
Yeah.
Jill's 100% right. I was at the casino here in Boston the night before the Celtics and Rockets were playing, and James Harden was at my table playing blackjack.
Fun nugget there.
It's just they're human beings
News
who
and
are
gossip.
competitive. They like going out and gambling, and they like going to strip clubs. Like there's a reason why players love playing in. Why Michael Jordan said New York was his favorite place to play. There's a lot of stuff to do. They enjoy the nightlife. They don't just go as a business trip. That is more, you said, Jill, more of a football thing.
Well, and see, and like I 100% only have the perspective from the football side of things. That's where my background is in, so I'm sitting here like, no way, they're in a hotel away from everything. There's no distractions, that ain't happening. But I could see where you're coming from. And especially thinking back to even last week with Alex, he was telling us, like, he was like, I'm the type of teammate that you do whatever you want to do on your own time. I'm going to do whatever I do on my own time. As long as you can play your game and the way you always play, when it comes time to being on the court, I'm cool with it. And so, I mean, that kind of speaks to the same mentality. And I think mostly, like, we're seeing even more that this 100% was just, again, media derived to just nitpick at Michael Jordan and just find something wrong with him. Like, I had absolutely, I did not blame him for a second. But about like being mad at the media, sorry, my thought trailed off. But do we think that it would have been as bad had that book by Slim and like, well, not by Slim, but the Michael and Me book, do we think that had that book not come out, that this whole situation would have been as bad?
Yeah, I think so. And how weird was that guy too? Like that guy looks so strange, and just even the cover he chose where he's like buddy buddy with him, and like they have like the putters in their hands, just looked like a real weirdo. And even the title, Michael and Me, just sounds so thirsty.
Yes.
I don't know. Has anyone read that book? It's probably extremely strange. But I also just wanted to say episode 6, very special for me. It was the first time I got one of the trivia questions right. I don't know. I got LeBron James. I don't know if you guys have been extremely frustrated by these trivia questions. They give you about 3 seconds to answer.
It's so
completely insane. How did no one think this through? Like it should be at the next commercial break.
Yeah, that's what you expect from everything else. It's always like that. Or there's like a countdown.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to think and someone yells the answer at you.
You're like, how many points did Michael Jordan score in his career? To the number 1, 2, 3. What's the answer?
Yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah,
no, it's 30,127. You idiot! How did you not get that?
Did you really know that?
No, that's not how many points.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh my gosh, Jet.
No. I don't know that off the top of my head.
But I will
gave me 5
on top
minutes.
of that too, the Kenny Mayne segments, like they want to keep doubling down on that. I don't know if you guys see the same ones too, where he's like, that's just not funny, and they keep running it.
2020, you can press a phone and you'll get a pizza there.
There's no humor in it. It's like it's so bad.
Those are ads though, right? With State Farm. I think State Farm is sponsoring those ads because there's less commercials. I think that's how it is. There's still
it's like there's like 4, I think, major brands or companies that
it's State Farm, Facebook, Reese's.
And
are the ESPN ones with Kenny Mayne sponsored? Because it just seems like they're in like an old Sports Center studio.
I think they are. I think they're sponsored by State Farm, and
they're
supposed to be like
okay.
That's kind of how they're. I guess it's an integrated marketing approach.
Just a tough one to swallow for State Farm.
I know we need to wrap up in a second, but I do want to say, touching on this gambling thing one more time, I am very curious to see how the next episode segues with his retirement and the greatest sports conspiracy theory of all time, that Michael Jordan was forced out because of gambling. And we'll see if that even becomes a topic or if Michael Jordan didn't even let that be discussed. And then, spoiler alert, his father was murdered. So there's another conspiracy there about his gambling. So I'll see. I'm very curious to see how much further Michael Jordan narratively allows the documentary to explore that and those sort of theories that have floated around basketball circles and media circles for 30 years now.
Was his father and the gambling conspiracies, was it strictly the gambling, or was it the sketchy figures that he encountered with throughout his gambling?
Had to do with Michael Jordan owing a lot of money to a lot of bad people.
That would make sense. And then I just want to say, because I know I like telling y'all that I just learn all these life lessons from watching Michael Jordan, and it's fun for me. So despite one of the biggest, like my biggest things, I just must look at him with like rose-colored glasses, because I'm just seeing this like incredible, inspiring human being. And that's how I'm taking all of this Michael Jordan stuff, despite his gambling. I'm like, no, he's competitive. It's fine. But in this situation with the media just continuously heckling him and attacking him, I just thought it was awesome that he was able to block out the noise and continue to have the performances that he had, despite all of the distractions and despite that everything that was going around him. Like I don't know his quote exactly, but it was the one that he was like, people will always want to see you fail, but like believe in yourself, basically. And that was just really big to me, because I was just like, we constantly live in an era that we have these negative voices around us all the time. And here's just proof that like, if you just block it out and believe in yourself, and that's all you really need. So, okay, I'm going to step off my TED Talk now, but that was just like something that I was like, wow, takeaway here. This is awesome. Thanks, Michael Jordan.
I completely agree. It's so inspirational. It makes me want to just do things.
Anything. Does it make you want to be like Mike?
Oh,
it does. It has to.
Speaking of which, that commercial was so solid. I'm just saying, going back to our whole commercial thing, that one was one of my favorites.
There's like 5 of them and they're all awesome.
But, guys, we definitely got to wrap up. And this episode, this episode just kind of ended with they did it. They won their third championship. They have cemented themselves in history, but that's not where they stop. And we know that. So from there, Jess, go ahead and give us our special segment. What is our GOAT quote?
So today's GOAT quote is actually one you guys kind of touched on when Kobe was talking about MJ. I decided to twist it a little bit, but it's when he said, "I truly hate having discussions about who would win one-on-one. You heard fans saying, 'Hey, Kobe, you'd beat Michael one-on-one.' And I feel like what you get from me is what you get is from him. I don't get 5 championships here without him because he guided me so much and gave me so much great advice." Love it.
And Jet, go ahead and quickly run through our news and gossip.
All right. Friend of the show, Alex Caruso, tweeted, "Michael Jordan's mom is 2 for 2. Number 1, don't quit basketball in high school. 2, go listen to Nike." Good job by Mrs. Jordan there. Warriors rookie Eric Paschal tweeted, "I wish Jordans were still $108 with tax today." I think we all do. Kendrick Perkins was laughing about the fact that Phil Jackson had to kick Jerry Seinfeld out of the Bulls locker room in what was maybe the most 90s moment of the entire 90s. And then just a little bit of information on Michael Wozniak, the security guard. Michael Jordan's one of his media reps, his handler, said he passed away in January. And I'm sure he has a front seat watching from heaven of Michael Jordan. He was a great guy. So he became a viral sensation. I'm sure that he would have been happy with that today because he beat Michael Jordan in quarters. How many people can say they beat Michael Jordan in anything besides golf?
Awesome.
And took some of his money in his pocket.
The way he says it afterwards too. He goes right back at him. Yeah, Jordan's trying to say, "Oh yeah, you roll it," and he just sticks it to him and goes, "Watch it roll into my pocket."
Just hit him with the shrug. Boop.
Hey,
amazing.
And who knows? Maybe he's up there watching with Kobe. Well, guys, this was another great night, great episode. Frank, thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you.
Find me on Twitter at JetStriar, JetStriar. Quick shout out to the producers of The Last Dance for putting an Outkast song over when they went to Atlanta. They played Rosa Parks there. Perfect song for when the team went to Atlanta. Oh my God, they've been crushing the music, and that was the best part of the music so far. Rosa Parks when the team went to Atlanta to play in a football stadium. Woo! Mwah.
Jess, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Overtime Jess and Twitter at Jess Lucero Live.
Promise you want to follow her on TikTok. All right. And Jill.
Follow me everywhere at StilettoJIll, Team Nike in the house, always and forever. Had to put that out there.
And our wonderful guest, Frank. Let the people know where they can follow you at.
Everyone can follow me at Frank Michael Smith on TikTok. If you go on there, you'll see a bunch of NBA short stories. If you like watching this, I'm sure you'll like those.
Yeah, absolutely. His stuff is phenomenal. Make sure you go give him a follow. And lastly, I'm your host, Haley Graves. You can follow me on Instagram, Haley Graves with 2 S's. That's HaleyGravess. And on Twitter, Haley1Graves2. All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.